We have the tech to get food delivered in 15 minutes, but we all have horror stories about buying tickets. The Game Time app gives fans the advantage. Get amazing tickets in just a few taps. Fees are included, so what you see is what you pay. And the Game Time guarantee means authentic tickets at the best price every time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets to concerts, sports, comedy, and more with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply.
Hi, I'm Katie Duke, and I've been a nurse for over 20 years. Listen, I used to think that I was my most stylish in my 20s, but honestly, style and confidence only get better with age. And that is why I love Figs. These scrubs are beautiful, comfortable, and they are built to last. They're not those boxy, scratchy uniforms that we all started out in. No. These fit perfectly. They feel amazing, and the quality is just wow! My favorite color? Burgundy. It's chic, it's timeless, and it's even the same color as my apartment, because I'm kind of obsessed with it. And I love adding custom embroidery to make my scrubs as personal as my style. And since I work in telehealth, my embroidered Figs even double as my ID badge. It's never too late to reinvent yourself or your scrubs. Get 15% off your first order at wearfigs.com with the code FIGSRX. That's wearfigs.com, code FIGSRX for 15% off your first order.
A warm and friendly hello! Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops Peters, and now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. We've got an excellent podcast for you as we're going to be joined in segment number 2 by one of our good friends, Ryan McIntyre, who does such great work over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. We're going to take a look at the 2 Elite 8 games that we've got on this Sunday, just what we've been seeing in the NCAA tournament in general, his impressions on how the Big Ten has performed thus far, and have to talk a little bit about that North Carolina coaching search as well in the final segment. Going to get you guys picks and analysis on both games on the betting board for this college basketball Sunday as we had some bank shots. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of two ways to be able to fire those in. First one is my Twitter / X timeline at @GUnit_D1. Keep in mind, letters EM, they mean does not matter. So, as per usual, please send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it's very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Well, I did not get in any Twitter / X questions today. Had some superb basketball played on Saturday. Let's take a look back at it. Try to find some trends and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
Iowa had the 32-28 lead at the half over Illinois. Illinois, though, they muscle up down low. They get the job done 71-59, so a win and cover there. Illinois, 18 out of 21 at the free throw line. They win the turnover battle 9-8. And for Illinois, they had Keaton Wagler on their side. 25 points. Illinois only goes 3 of 17 from 3. Iowa started out very hot from 3. Cooled down late. 11 of 30 from the outside. Bennett Sturtz did his best. 24 points. He goes 4 of 11 from 3. Throws in their 3 assists. But ultimately, for Iowa, the just overall rebound disparity, it really caught up to them. Illinois was able to pull away late as they had Andrei Stojakovic come off the bench. 17 big points out of him. Tomislav Ivisic had some big results late in the game as well. And David Markovic, 12 rebounds, 9 points. Illinois, they're on to the Final Four. And the same goes for Arizona. Arizona gets down 38-31 at the half against Purdue, and boy, did the Boilermakers not boiler up in the second half. They get outscored in the second half 48-26 as Arizona, they get the job done. They keep the total under 79-64 final in this one, as now we have seen the under at a 62.1% clip here in the last 7 days, by the way, and the underdogs are right around 50-50 in that time span, but that's it for Purdue. 8 of 22 from 3-point range, but they started off so hot, 7 of 14 from 3-point range. They hit just 1 out of their last 8. Braden Smith, 13 points, but it took him 15 shots to be able to get there. Purdue loses a rebound battle 37-36, and for Arizona, 20 out of 22 at the free throw line. Koa Pete, he was the main scorer of 20 points, but Mateusz Krivas be able to give you 12 rebounds. Braden Burries, Jaden Bradley, they both throw in their 14 points. For Purdue, they lose a turnover battle 11-6 and just completely melted down at the end of this game. So it was a very interesting Elite 8 slate on Saturday. Should be a fun one on Sunday. We're going to be taking a look at that and so much more with our good friend Ryan McIntyre of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, right here on the flip side on Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops Peters, and now a part of the VSiN Family Podcast.
Hi, I'm Katie Duke, and I've been a nurse for over 20 years. Listen, I used to think that I was my most stylish in my 20s, but honestly, style and confidence only get better with age. And that is why I love Figs. These scrubs are beautiful, comfortable, and they are built to last. They're not those boxy, scratchy uniforms that we all started out in. No. These fit perfectly. They feel amazing, and the quality is just wow! My favorite color? Burgundy. It's chic, it's timeless, and it's even the same color as my apartment, because I'm kind of obsessed with it. And I love adding custom embroidery to make my scrubs as personal as my style. And since I work in telehealth, my embroidered figs even double as my ID badge. It's never too late to reinvent yourself or your scrubs. Get 15% off your first order at wearfigs.com with the code FIGSRX. That's wearfigs.com, code FIGSRX for 15% off your first order.
Side edge this college basketball season? Well, VSiN experts use CBB Analytics, the most comprehensive college basketball analytics platform in the world. See injury impact, on and off data, clutch time performance metrics, first versus second half splits, and so much more. Utilize the promo code of VSiN, that is VSIN, to get $30 off and find your betting edge over at cbbanalytics.com. That is cbbanalytics, all one word.com. For anyone that is new to VSiN, well, I wish you a friendly hello. This is an attention to anyone that is new to VSiN because you're able to get some free stuff with our daily newsletter. It's a great way to catch up on everything that's happening in the sports betting world. It's delivered straight to your inbox every single morning. VSiN's newsletter offers picks, data, strategies for the day's betting menu, and so much more. Sign up for free today over at VSiN.com/newsletter. That's VSIN.com/newsletter, and start receiving your free newsletter tomorrow morning. That is VSIN.com/newsletter. Stay ahead of the game and bet smarter with VSiN. And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for Guts Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops Peterson, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. Always great to be joined by this man. We've got Ryan McIntyre aboard, who does such great work over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. Looking at this great game that we all know and love of college basketball, I know that he is hard at work taking a look at these final few games. And much like myself, when the season ends, he gets right into the postseason. But on top of that, he does a great job with the college experience, taking a look at all things college sports, college baseball, football, basketball. List goes on and on. You're able to follow him on the old Twitter /X at Moneyline_Mac, spelled M-A-C. And additionally, he also does a great job with the Ryan and Rush Show, taking a look at West Virginia sports. And always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you.
Greg, always appreciate it. We're unfortunately don't have many games left.
No, we unfortunately do not, but the games that we do have left are big ones. Now, we are doing this prior to knowing what happened in the Elite Eight on Saturday, but those two games on Sunday, I think, are setting up for big ones, and I'll get your thoughts conference by conference in a minute, but certainly out of the 8 teams remaining, aside from Iowa, who was a little bit of a Cinderella, truly got all the real top 8 teams that we were looking for here into the final 8.
Yeah, it's kind of been a little bit of chalk again. I know Iowa's kind of the Cinderella team, that even though they're out of the Big Ten. I think it's tougher, too, with Cinderella just because I feel like they got underseeded like crazy again. Like Utah State, instead of being a 5, they're a 9. Then you got to play Arizona in the second round.
St. John should not have been a 5.
Yeah, and I thought it was crazy. VCU would have been out if they had lost that A-10 tournament or A-10 championship with the way that they finished the season. So there's definitely a narrative for the SEC and Big Ten with the TV contracts. It is what it is at this point. I'm interested to see how this Iowa-Illinois game pans out, because Iowa has seen Illinois and their unique style of play, so they won't be surprised by anything. And then the nightcap, will Arizona continue to roll? We'll find out here after the show. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to these two games tomorrow as well, Greg.
Yep, and we know that we're going to have at least one Big Ten team in the Final Four, because as we're recording this, Iowa versus Illinois is getting set to go down, and both of those teams are from the Big Ten. So I'm going to go out on a limb there, but how have you taken a look at the Big Ten thus far? A conference that has not had a NCAA tournament champion since 2000, but so far, very good showing from this conference, in my opinion.
Yeah, now the question is, can they finally end that 26-year drought? It's kind of crazy every time we get the madness and then we bring out all the stats and trends from the past, and you see that one with the Big Ten. Last champion, Michigan State 2000. It's crazy that a league that's had teams in the Final Four year after year. I know your Badgers have been there. Purdue was in the Natty a couple of years ago. Michigan State, obviously, with Izzo's always there. I know Beeline and Michigan went to the title game multiple times. Heck, even Ohio State and Thad Matta the one year. So it's kind of crazy that they have not been able to knock down this door. So we'll see if they can finally get it done this year.
We shall see, and it is going to be very entertaining to see what we get moving forward out of those games, as Ryan McIntyre does such great work over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, joining me right here on Coast to Coast Hoops, and I think that it's going to be a lot of fun to see what we get on Sunday in that Duke versus UConn game, because right now that spread is right around UConn being a 4.5 to a 5-point underdog, and I want to get your thoughts here, because I thought whoever won that Duke versus St. John's game was ultimately going to be going to the Final Four, and we didn't know whether or not Caleb Foster was going to play in the NCAA tournament at all, but I feel like Duke is a complete team once again now that he's back out there on the floor, and I thought his presence was very much felt in that Sweet 16 game.
Yeah, Duke really turned it on there in the second half, made all those plays. I mean, Boozer's so darn good. Some of the shots he made through contact, through traffic, are just next level NBA stuff. So, but I like UConn, Greg. I trust Dan Hurley on the short term. We know he hasn't lost a game as a coach past Sweet 16. I think that they're able to make the adjustments with that proud program and that culture led by Caravan, who's already won 2 national championships. I think that they're able to really drag this thing in the mud, control the tempo. I like the under, and I like UConn, and I like UConn on the money line too.
I like it. Call them for an upset. That is going to be a lot of fun, and then we'll see if you're able to call for the upset in the other game, as right now Tennessee 7.5-point underdogs against Michigan. That total's right around 146.5, 147, and I don't think I can quite get there on the money line with Tennessee, but I love the way that this team rebounds. For Michigan, obviously rock solid down low, but I thought that for Tennessee, what might be their undoing against Iowa State is the fact that Iowa State does such a great job with turnovers. Tennessee, as we know, their weakness is taking care of the ball. Against a Michigan team that really doesn't generate a lot of turnovers, I think that this is a good matchup for Tennessee, maybe to not win the game, but to hold in there with a coach in Rick Barnes that has been so disrespected for so long and finally has made it back here to the Elite Eight.
I was getting ready to say, Greg, I think we need to put to bed all the Rick Barnes narratives, because he's now gone to 3 straight Elite Eights with Tennessee. I mean, this is quietly one of the more remarkable. Maybe it was more so Rick Barnes choked at Texas. I think that's the new narrative. So I like the point. I like this version of Tennessee. Michigan obviously is a wagon, just like Arizona, with their size and just their versatility on the defensive end. But I like these veteran guards from Tennessee too. So I think this will be a 1 to 2 possession game. I'll take that 7.5 points.
Absolutely, and I think that it is going to be interesting to see what we get on Saturday, because obviously doing this before we know whether Purdue or Arizona won, Iowa or Illinois won as well, but I feel like whoever wins in Illinois versus Iowa would very much be up against it against either UConn or Duke in that Final Four matchup, but I think it's going to be really interesting to see if Arizona's able to get past Purdue, because I felt like going into this round of the tournament, Arizona was playing the best ball of any team in college basketball, and I think every other team in the field was rooting for Purdue on Saturday.
I think everybody's rooting for Tennessee and Purdue, but I don't know if either can get that thing done. If we do get an Arizona-Michigan Final Four, that is a clash of the Titans, and not just because of how good they are, but just how big both those two teams are. The size, the potential Mara versus Krivas in the front court, Awakawa versus Lendenberg in the front court, or Pete versus Lendenberg. And I mean, both teams start 6'9", 6'11", and then 7'2", 7'3" in the front court. So I kind of want to see the Michigan-Arizona game just because I want to see how they match up with each other. And you got the veteran guards in Cano and Jaden Bradley too.
Selfishly, I do not, because I took Purdue to win the entire thing. Do I think it's going to happen at this point? Probably not, but one can dream. One can dream, but certainly that is going to be a lot of fun to take a look at. And it's hard to speculate too much more moving forward just because we don't know what happened on Saturday quite yet. But I do want to ask you about this because there's one big piece of news in college basketball that is going to be shaping everything. What happens with North Carolina? Because from all indications, it looks like Billy Donovan might be the leader in the clubhouse for the North Carolina job. And I think that there will be a lot of people very, very enthused with that, because then you don't have too much of a shuffle with regards to the coaching moves in college basketball, because you pluck someone from the NBA. It's not like there's a vacancy that needs to be filled or anything like that. But how do you take a look at the current state of this North Carolina job, where things stand, and whether or not Billy Donovan might get the job? Because I think every other college basketball team, while they might not want to see Billy Donovan on the sidelines, they'd feel a sense of relief knowing that their own coach would not be lost either.
Yeah, I mean, Carolina's still a blue blood. I know that they've kind of struggled over the last couple of years here. I know they did have the Final Four where they ended Coach K's run there. I think that it still is one of the more premier jobs when you consider the Jordan brand and just being a blue blood in the ACC. If Duke can be as good as they are, why can't North Carolina be as good as they are? I agree. I think it is still one of the premier jobs. Billy Donovan would be interesting because he hasn't been in the college game for a minute, but the college game has turned more into the NBA over the last couple of years with NIL and portal.
Yep, absolutely. And I do think that we are going to be in for a very interesting offseason. Ryan, I know you're going to be talking with me so much about that, but hey, we've got a few really great games before then. I'm sure that you're going to be locked in on the NIT and the Crown, much like myself next week as well. So let the good people at home know what's on tap for you and how people are able to follow along on social media and other platforms.
Yeah, we still got the Crown, we still got NIT, and obviously we got the Final Four in Indy, which I'll be traveling here on Thursday because I'm going to go to the NIT games in person. Looking forward to that. Check us out at the College Experience every night, and then my personal is at Moneyline_Mac.
And Ryan, he does such an amazing job taking a look at this great sport of college basketball every single time he joins people on such great insights, and did so once again today. So big thanks to Ryan for joining me on Coast to Coast Hoops, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Coming up next, it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this college basketball Sunday. Both games for the Elite Eight as we hit some big shots.
Hi, I'm Katie Duke, and I've been a nurse for over 20 years. Listen, I used to think that I was my most stylish in my 20s, but honestly, style and confidence only get better with age. And that is why I love Figs. These scrubs are beautiful, comfortable, and they are built to last. They're not those boxy, scratchy uniforms that we all started out in. No. These fit perfectly. They feel amazing, and the quality is just wow! My favorite color? Burgundy. It's chic, it's timeless, and it's even the same color as my apartment, because I'm kind of obsessed with it. And I love adding custom embroidery to make my scrubs as personal as my style. And since I work in telehealth, my embroidered figs even double as my ID badge. It's never too late to reinvent yourself or your scrubs. Get 15% off your first order at wearfigs.com with the code FIGSRX. That's wearfigs.com, code FIGSRX for 15% off your first order.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always a pleasure to be joined by our good friend Ryan McIntyre, who does such great work over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. Every single time he joins me, lends such great insights, and did so once again today. So big thanks to Ryan for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on both games on the betting board for this college basketball Sunday as we hit some bank shots.
Most financial establishments close at a certain time, but not here. It is time for a side and total on every game on today's betting board bank shots.
Do note that as per usual, any changes are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at GNet_D. Rotation order has the Duke versus UConn game first, which I don't understand why. I'm just going to go in time order. Tennessee versus Michigan, then UConn versus Duke. So let's have ourselves some fun. 6:35, 6:36. Tennessee is going to be facing off against Michigan from Chicago. And right now for Michigan, they are 7.5-point favorites. Total on this game, 146 and 146.5. And I'm going to be willing to take the points with Tennessee. I did set them as a 6.5-point underdog. Tennessee, they rebound 44.4% of their missed shots as an offensive rebound. That is numero uno in all of college basketball. And for Tennessee, what has been the downfall for the team all season long? Turnovers, 237th in the country in terms of turnovers on a per possession basis on offense, but now they get to go up against a Michigan team that really doesn't force the issue. Michigan, 280th in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis, and you got two game breakers for Tennessee. Nate Amon, Jacoby Gillespie, combined for 35.3 points per game. Both shoot a combined about 34% from three, neither here nor there. You've got Gillespie giving you 5.5 assists per game. Again, the turnovers have been an issue, but Michigan, even though Elia Kadu does such a great job in the backcourt, give you over 5.5 assists per game, not the most active of hands out there. Felix Apara along Jalen Carey combined for 12.4 rebounds per game. I think that'll stand up to the big three that you've got for Michigan. A Michigan team that's second in the country with regards to their own 2-point shooting percentage. You've obviously got Morris Johnson, Yaxel Lindenborg along with Ade Mera. They all give you at least 6.5 rebounds per game. Between the three of them, by the way, they also give you about 5 blocks per contest as well, so that's been rock solid, and they're really good on the inside with regards to their defense as well. You look at opponents' 2-point shooting percentage with regards to this Michigan team, they are fourth in the country, but for Michigan Michigan, they've been relying a little bit more on the three ball recently, even though they've been dealing with a few injuries. LJ Kaysen going down, they've still been able to get some relatively good production of Nabari Burnett, who has been able to give the team right around about 9 points. He shoots in the high 30s from three-point range. Michigan, by the way, 37.3% is what they shoot from three-point range away from home. That is a top 40 mark in all of college basketball. Tennessee, year in and year out, they're just one of the better defensive teams in all of college basketball. Really held down Iowa State a few days ago. They've been a top 40 team in terms of opponents' three-point shooting percentage. Tennessee, 34th in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. But do you think that this tempo gets cranked up a little bit more to have a Michigan team that they are very content to run? And Michigan has been a top 10 team in terms of points scored on a per possession basis, in terms of total possessions per game, 50th. Do you think that this comes down to some late game fouls as well? So I did set my total here at a 146.5. So getting that 146, like the over and the points with Tennessee, and then wrap things up with 633, 634. Duke and UConn do battle. Duke, a 4.5 to a 5-point favorite. Total on this game, going to be finding that between 133.5 to a 134. Do like the over. I set my total at a 135 for Duke. Getting back Caleb Foster is massive. In the 5 games without him, they were shooting about 44.3% from the floor, only about 30% from three. Foster off the bench gave the team 12 big points, and I think that he is such a big X factor, and that's a big reason why I did set Duke as a 7-point favorite. I'm going to be willing to lay the number. Both of these teams rock solid on defense. UConn, they are 13th in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, and Duke is even more dominant at second in the country, but you've obviously got the best player on the side of Duke in this game as Cameron Boozer. 22 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists. He just does a little bit of everything for the team, but don't lose sight of the fact that Isaiah Nelson is able to be an X factor as well. Just under a block per contest, 14 plus points, shoots in the mid-30s from three-point range, and Duke is not a team that's going to go into flamethrower mode from three-point range here, just a hair above country average with that regard. With this UConn team during Big East Conference play, they were shooting about 38% from three, but still, they shoot about 34.9% from the outside, so they've had a few issues there. Being able to get back Silas Demery is big because he was dealing with injury towards the front half of the NCAA tournament. Still only played 23 minutes in that game against Michigan State. You tell that he's not necessarily himself, as he has scored 10 points or fewer in each of the last 5 games that he's actually played in, so that is a little bit of a hamperance now. Darius Reed has been rock solid down low. Pair of blocks, 9 boards, 14 points per game, and that's going to be tough for Duke to match up with. But Patrick Ngongba coming off of injury, that's big for the team. Alex Caravan, he shoots about 39.5% from three-point range, and neither of these teams are looking to play super duper up tempo. As a matter of fact, both of these teams quite slow, with UConn 298th in the country in terms of total possessions per game. Duke just a hair faster at about 281st, but Duke is also 4th in the country in terms of points scored on a per possession basis. I think that this is just close enough for late fouls, so set a total of a 135, like the over, and I'm willing to lay up to 6.5 here with Duke, and that wraps things up for the Sunday edition of Coast to Coast Hoops, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Big thanks to Ryan McIntyre, does such great work with the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, for joining me in the last segment. If you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Coast to Coast Hoops, you're able to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts: Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one or two ways to be able to fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at @unit_D1. Keep in mind, the RCM, they mean does not matter, so per usual, please do send these into the timeline. Other ways, find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it's very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast. Find that 5-star review, coming at you guys every single day with fixing analysis on every single game, every single day. So I'll be back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Katie Duke, and I've been a nurse for over 20 years. Listen, I used to think that I was my most stylish in my 20s, but honestly, style and confidence only get better with age. And that is why I love Figs. These scrubs are beautiful, comfortable, and they are built to last. They're not those boxy, scratchy uniforms that we all started out in. No. These fit perfectly. They feel amazing, and the quality is just wow! My favorite color? Burgundy. It's chic, it's timeless, and it's even the same color as my apartment, because I'm kind of obsessed with it. And I love adding custom embroidery to make my scrubs as personal as my style. And since I work in telehealth, my embroidered figs even double as my ID badge. It's never too late to reinvent yourself or your scrubs. Get 15% off your first order at wearfigs.com with the code FIGSRX. That's wearfigs.com, code FIGSRX, for 15% off your first order.